And legendary Clemson SID Tim Bourret joins us here on a Thursday afternoon. And Tim, what an exciting start for this Clemson Tiger men's basketball team coming out of the gate in ACC play at 9-1. I just can't say enough good things about this team right now.
Well, I got to agree with you. We're a little bit more than the start. We're actually at the midway point of the conference season, and we're 2/3 of the way through the regular season. 9-1 is our best 10-game conference start in history. We're actually sort of at least a tie for the best 11-game start, because 9-2 is the best 11-game start in Clemson history, done by Banks McFadden's 1951-52 team that started out on 9-2. But yeah, it's been great. Won every home game so far. Go back on the road for the next two, and the road games are so important with the net ranking. It's we can go into discussion on that. We have talked about it, but it's the net ranking seems to be there for the NCAA committee for an excuse, because you might remember a couple of years ago, Clemson and NC State were both in the 30s and didn't get in. And last year, Rutgers was 80th in the net and got in. So who knows?
Yeah. I think you just said it best. Who knows is exactly right when it comes down to it. The thing that I will say, I think if you watch this Clemson team, minus Chase Hunter, minus Alex Hemingway, when you talk about postseason basketball or tournament basketball, a lot of times that can come down to the depth that you have. And one could argue that these injuries that have taken place for Clemson in the long run of this 2022-2023 season could pay some serious dividends down the road.
Oh, without a doubt. One of our great teams was in 1986-87, Horace Grant's senior year. We started out 24-2 that year, and then Grayson Marshall sprained his ankle up at Duke, and we lost 4 of the last 5 games of the season and didn't win a postseason game in either the ACC or the NCAA tournament. And that injury just killed us, because he was the guy who called all the shots with the offense. So, but you're right. I mean, we've lost our point guard, we've lost our best shooting guard, a 50% 3-point shooter. PJ was hurt at the beginning of the season. He played through it. But you're right, and we've shown an ability to win different ways, which I think has got to be impressive to the committee in the long run.
Well, and when you look at, obviously Hunter Tyson, an all ACC type season for him, maybe even ACC player of the year, who knows what's to come as he kind of comes down the home stretch, if you will. But the veteran leadership on this team, Josh Pastner even saying as much after the ball game a couple of days ago, just that, when you're going up against it, and I didn't play at that level, Tim, so I don't know if this is true or not, but I was thinking about, Rick Barnes and that young group with Terrell McIntyre and Harold Jameson. And it was kind of like that group maybe didn't know any better. This group is able to handle things and compartmentalize things maybe a little bit differently, but because of their maturity, they handle what typically in the past would have been a stressor in a lot of respects better than, I think most Clemson teams have throughout many years.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. This team has done a lot of things that haven't been done since Rick Barnes' 1996-97 teams, and I do see a lot of comparisons as far as defense is concerned. But also that team could score when needed to, and you could almost look at a lot of similarities in some of the players. But you could say that Hunter Tyson is this year's Greg Buckner. I don't know if we got anybody to compare to McIntyre and the way he used to play, but you could say Middlebrooks is Tom Weidman and PJ is Harold Jameson. So. But you're right. That team was a veteran team. Those guys were sophomores, and they had been through it, the previous year. So that experience does help. But the guys we have now, I mean, you got Chase is in his 4th year, Hunter's in his 5th year, PJ's in his 3rd year. When Hemingway gets back, he's in his 4th year. But all that said, I think you'll agree the most impressive thing about the last game against Georgia Tech was the play of the freshmen, who combined for 23 points on 9 of 13 shooting.
Oh, there's no doubt. And again, I think that depth that those guys will add down the road will be huge for this Clemson Tiger men's basketball team. Again, we're hanging out with Tim Bourret on the program. Follow him on Twitter at Tim Bourret. And the other thing is, Clemson basketball fans, Tim, unlike maybe guys in the media or people in your situation that are on the call, you're there every single game and you're right there in basically on the sidelines and in the huddle and with the team. I've gotten more and more of my Clemson compadres coming on board saying, man, I'm liking what I see from this team. I like the energy. And they always have a little bated breath, though, that something's going to go sideways. But nonetheless, Clemson sticking it out with Brad Brownell through these years where there were a lot of people that wanted to change. It really does feel like now, minus Coach K at Duke, minus Roy Williams at North Carolina, that with the time that Brad Brownell's been in the league, the experience that he has on this team, I mean, these guys are capable, and they're proving it, of going out and pretty much beating anybody, that's on their schedule.
Yeah, I agree. This is the type of team that can, make adjustments and play with anybody from an X and O's standpoint. When I look at, Duke, and they had a 6'10" and a 7-footer,
Right.
we beat them. And then there's some other teams that play a lot more, smaller. Pittsburgh is that type of team that'll put up a lot of 3-point shots. And there's different styles that we've, beaten. The one conference loss is to Wake Forest, and we didn't have Chase Hunter in that game. But defense travels, as they say, and Clemson is leading the ACC in field goal percentage defense at .395, and it's been a long time since Clemson led the ACC in 3-point defense. That's for sure.
When you kind of look at this group at this point, Tim, I think the big question becomes, what's the top of the mark in your opinion for this team? I mean, NCAA tournament. I mean, do they have in your eyes? And I know you don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I mean, do they have the talent to make a run to the Sweet 16? Because I kind of look at them and I look at what I see nationally, and I think if Hunter Tyson and PJ Hall are playing the way they're playing now in a month, I mean, honestly, this team, I think has the potential to make that type of run.
Yeah, the unusual point about it is that they're going to have consistent firepower from the outside, which you figured you'd get from Chase Hunter and from Hemingway, but since Shefflin's been in the lineup, he adds a different factor. He's such a good passer. He's had 6 assists in 2 different games. He had a 6-to-1 assist to turnover ratio the other night. He got 7 rebounds. He's a bigger guy in the lineup from the defensive standpoint. It'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out. Of course, it gives versatility now, more experienced guys for Coach Brownell. He can go different directions.
Yeah, no, I think they're fascinating, and the other thing too, versatile. And when you were talking earlier about kind of comparing them to maybe that 96, 97 team, the thing that say a Harold Jamison couldn't do that a PJ Hall can is really step out to the perimeter and shoot a 10, 12, 20-foot shot, if that's what PJ Hall wants to do. And then you kind of have maybe even a little bit of a better shooter, I would say, from the perimeter in Hunter Tyson. And for those people that haven't been around these guys, I mean, those are big athletic basketball players on this team that certainly have a huge impact, when it comes down to matchups that they can take advantage of at any given time. And, you kind of see Brad Brownell's trust in Hunter Tyson, giving him the ball in his hands to knock down the game-winning 3 over the weekend. And it's like, man, when you've got those guys confident and playing the way that they've been playing, they become a matchup issue just being on the floor for most teams.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And looking back at Harold Jameson, I don't think he ever attempted a three-point shot in his 4 years at Clemson. No, I'm just agreeing with
yeah, I know, I agree.
And yeah, PJ can be a matchup problem because he definitely can shoot the three. I think he's around 40% in ACC play this year. Hunter's around 40%. And the other thing we haven't even talked about is free throws. 79.5%, fifth best in the nation right now, on pace to be a Clemson record. But your overall point of the matchups with those two guys is important. You know, we've for years and years we've gone into games thinking, how in the world is Clemson going to match up against such and such a player on such and such a team? And
right.
And a lot of times now the Clemson has become a headache for the opposition.
Well, and speaking of headaches, you if you'd have been a part of the show yesterday, we kind of, I don't know how I never can get through a basketball season talking about Clemson. You know, they do some great feat, 9-1, and then I start to talk about the great moments in Clemson hoops history, and people start replying on social media. But then that always makes me diverge into some of the more painful moments, and that always starts with Tate George and UConn. I can't get away from it, Tim. It's like a nightmare that I can't run from. I know you and I have talked about it in the past, so I'll let you slide on that one, but maybe throw out a couple of other painful Clemson basketball moments for you over the years where maybe you felt like one just slipped through the Tigers' grasps.
Yeah, well, I guess you're referring to what would be postseason play.
Really, any? They're all daggers, Tim. They're all daggers.
There's a lot of them. But you know, I'll start off by saying Tate George is number 1, 2, and 3. So I'll start at number 4. Probably that Minnesota game in '97 tournament, Sweet 16 games. We won. We'd gone to the Elite 8. Double overtime game, I believe. We had a 7-point lead at some point in the overtime or the second overtime, or I do remember Tony Christie though hitting the shot to send it into the second overtime. But that was a crazy night out in San Antonio, and that was certainly disappointing. You know, a game that people probably don't even remember was playing UCLA in the Elite 8 for the right to go to the Final Four. So you figure you get that far, one game away for the Final Four. And I think UCLA beat us by 9. They outscored us by 9 the last 5 minutes of the first half. And you know, that was the difference in the game, that period of time. So that was pretty heartbreaking and disappointing. And then in 2006-07, under Coach Purnell, you know, we got off to that great start and then stumbled and then won a couple at the end, and we knew we were kind of on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. In the first round of the ACC tournament, we lost on a buzzer shot to Florida State in a game down in Tampa. So there have been a lot of them, you're right, but because there's so many games, but those are games that stand out to me off the top of my head.
Well, and then you got a positive moment as well that kind of led right to a bit of a what could have been when Clemson just hammers Auburn back in the NCAA tournament to go to the Sweet 16. Then in the next matchup, taking on Kansas, Clemson comes storming back late in that ball game, and people were tweeting at me yesterday about this. I think when Shelton Mitchell makes a dunk late, kind of rocks the entire arena. Clemson had trimmed like a 17-point lead to 6 or something, and I mean it was like, look out, this Clemson team might knock off the number one, you know, one of the top seeds in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, can cut the lead to 6 with still 2:27 to go. And you had to overcome an 18-point deficit with 7 minutes to go, I think it was. So, yeah, they just felt they ended up losing the game by 6. But yeah, that was a pretty amazing game also. So I guess Kansas went on to the finals. And in that tournament. But yeah, that was that was a great season and very enjoyable. And that Auburn game was probably the best game. And I said it on the air that was probably, when you take into account the game, it was a game to go to the Sweet 16. It was against an Auburn team who was ranked or seeded fourth, and had won the SEC championship, and we just beat them by 29 points. At one point, it was 71-27, and I said on the air, I feel like I'm watching a UConn women's basketball game.
Right. I mean, that was the greatest, I think, shooting performance I've ever witnessed from a Clemson team. I mean, it was unreal.
Yeah, especially Gabe DeVoe, he just kept moving further and further out. And of course, Gabe at 31, his career high in that next game against Kansas, had a phenomenal night. He really had a great run at the end of that season. And when Don and I go on the road with the basketball team, we usually have dinner with the team, and we were sitting with Coach Brownell and just talking about great Clemson teams of the past, and we talked about that 17-18 season, and he kind of just threw it out there that and I agreed with him that he always wondered what that team could have done with a healthy Dante Grantham, because as you remember, he got hurt 20 games into the season, and Clemson had just beaten Notre Dame. He got hurt in the Notre Dame game to go 17-3, and we ranked about 50th in the country. And you do have to wonder what that team could have done with Grantham healthy the whole way.
Final thing for you, Tim, and we always appreciate your insight. You talk about being around the coaches. Yesterday, I played an interview that I had done in the past with Cliff Ellis, and it's never lost on me how much Cliff Ellis still loves Clemson basketball. It's never lost on me. And I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, no, he does. God bless him. He still comes to whenever we have reunions. He's there. Wayne Buckingham organizes a kind of a reunion in the summer, and Cliff always comes to that. We always have a reunion during the season. We got one coming up for the weekend of the Miami game, and a couple of years ago, and it was the anniversary for the 90 team. He had a game, I guess the next night in Spartanburg, I guess it was, against somebody, and but he came over. He worked out practice, worked out the schedule, and got a ride over to be with us on Friday night. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, no, he is top of the mark. Even gave us a little "Go Tigers" before we got off the air with him a couple of years ago. We did that interview, but look, we appreciate you sharing your insight and wealth of knowledge. Love learning about that UCLA game back in 1980 today. And I know Tiger fans really appreciate you hanging out with us every Thursday to take a look back at yesteryear and talk about some of the big matchups forthcoming for Clemson.
Glad to do it, Lawton. Have a great